The Senate on Wednesday voted to pass the $895 billion defense authorization bill despite a provision on transgender care that turned off some Democrats, moving it along to President Biden's desk to be signed into law. Senators voted 85 to 14 in favor of passing the National Defense Authorization Act, well more than the 60 needed in the 100-member upper chamber. The bill advanced even with the insertion of a controversial measure that would ban some gender affirming care for transgender children of service members. Today, for the 64th consecutive year, the Senate passed a bipartisan National Defense Authorization Act to protect the American people and strengthen our security. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said in the floor speech ahead of the vote, the NDAA is not perfect, but it still makes several important advances Democrats fought for to secure America's national defense and take a strong stand against the Chinese Communist Party. The bill, which sets Pentagon policy for the year, passed the House 281 to 140 last week. The must-pass legislation typically passes with widespread bipartisan support, but that changed after Speaker Mike Johnson inserted some last-minute language in the bill that would restrict the use of funds from TRICARE, the healthcare program for active duty service members, for gender-affirming care for the children 18 years and younger of military members. That led a handful of Democrats to vote against it, including Senators Tammy Baldwin, Elizabeth Warren, and Ed Markey. A group of 21 Democratic senators attempted to block the provision in the 11th hour, introducing an amendment Monday that would strike Johnson's language, but the effort failed to pass. Baldwin, who had led the push to remove the so-called poison pill, urged her colleagues to reject the NDA, arguing that lawmakers' commitment to U.S. service members has been broken. It has been broken because some Republicans decided that gutting the rights of our service members to score cheap political points was more worthy, she said in remarks to the Senate floor ahead of the vote. We're talking about parents who are serving our country in uniform having the right to consult their family doctor and get the health care they want and need for their transgender children. That's it, she added, noting that the provision will impact between 6,000 and 7,000 military families. She later continued, some folks poison the bill and turn their backs on those in service and the people that we represent. But other Democratic senators threw their support behind it, arguing it was too important to national security to not pass. This is a strong, forward-looking bill that we can all be proud of. Senate Armed Service Committee Chair Jack Reed said ahead of the vote, though he acknowledged there are concerns that some of my colleagues have about the legislation. And this just goes on and on and on and on. I'll go to the Reed Sanders part and then we'll get into this. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, voted against the bill after railing against its price tag, lamenting last week that the current defense system is designed to make huge profits for a handful of giant defense contractors while providing less of what the country needs. We do not need to spend almost $1 trillion in the military while 500,000 Americans are homeless, children go hungry, and elderly people are unable to afford to heat their homes in the winter, he said in remarks on the Senate floor. Okay, and that's where we can stop this. So isn't it interesting that in the current gridlock United States House and Senate, where no matter what it is, it seems, you can always get one side to be opposed to it, right? So like if you want to get out of a war that's been going for years, right, there's going to be some pushback. If you want to do a wage increase, there will be some pushback. If you want to have some type of, food stamp program, pushback. But when it comes to pissing out hundreds of billions of dollars to the military for all types of irrelevant things, for the average American, they just have no problem with it. $895 billion. And when you get to that stuff about the gender affirming, my thing is, I feel really bad for anyone who ever convinced themselves that Democrats were these big fans of LGBT people, because it's like this: if they were so on the side of the rights of parents to get this care for their kids that are going through whichever gender change, they would vote against it. They would, as a caucus with their 50 seats, go, yeah, we're not doing this. But of course, they went right along with it. And Schumer, in his remarks, didn't even say anything about the bill is not perfect. It's like, what does that even mean? What are the issues with it? But no, it's just sad to live in a country where, we always have these people who talk about welfare, and oh, you guys just want to give a bunch of free stuff to people and all the rest of that crap. And I said it's amazing that in the same country with a $7 minimum wage, 7.50, minimum wage hasn't been raised in 15 years. We can't raise it by a few more dollars because that's going to destroy all these businesses. But we can piss out hundreds of billions of dollars overseas for the military every year. All the crumbling roads that don't get fixed, all the dilapidated housing, the schools that are underfunded. This stuff just persists and continue. I mean, like we talked before, it is such a paradox to live in the richest country in the world and see people homeless and not being able to afford food or get a job that will give them 40 hours a week. Or I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It is literal complete Twilight Zone. We talk about how the media is such a joke. There are all these different stories every year that I think are a really big deal, but the media just will not cover. And this is one of them. You'll have CNN or MSNBC or Fox, and they'll be talking about Trump's new cabinet pick, but no one's going to mention, wait a second, if we're so incapable of giving people free healthcare because it's apparently so costly, of giving people free college because it's apparently so costly, how are we able to afford hundreds of billions of dollars for these military budgets every year? No, they don't. You don't see that conversation, that discussion, and they do this with every major story that crosses their desk. We had the topic at the start of the year about how most Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency, or how most of us are living paycheck to paycheck, and it doesn't get mentioned or talked about or discussed at all. You would think if you just turn on one of these networks right now and you see their coverage of whatever, they're probably talking about like that shooting in Wisconsin or some other story of the week. You would think people are just living, happy, productive lives, and most of us at least are well-to-do, right? But it's the complete opposite. And a big part of the reason for that is because of the lack of reporting that allows people to be uninformed of just how crappy their own country has become, and how skewed the priorities of their politicians are. I mean, I just, you really, what I find so funny, and it's just more of that whole hypocritical angle. You'll have Republicans who will talk about the socialist Democrats, right? Oh, they're gonna put us into they're gonna increase the deficit with all their spending, and where are they gonna get the money for this, that, and the other? But when you see the the hundreds of billions of dollars going into the military every year, notice that Trump isn't furiously tweeting, going on Truth Social. We need to stop these ridiculously large military budgets and invest them in our like nothing. Because they're fine with it. They do this no matter whether it's a Democrat as president, a Republican as president, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, a Republican Senate, a Republican House. It's the same stupid thing every year of living in one of the richest countries in the world, with the majority of its people barely able to take care of themselves, while they use hundreds of billions of dollars and funnel it to stuff overseas. And I've explained this before. One of the reasons that they feel like they can do this is because they are insulated from the consequences electorally of doing this stupid stuff. You're not going to see voters who are living in, I don't know, Tennessee, right, go and say, hey, wait a second, Senator Blackburn, you're supposed to be this big conservative who's trying to balance the budget and all this other crap. Why are you spending? Why did you vote to send $800 billion for the defense budget this year? You won't see that because they don't know about it. And even if they did, unfortunately, because we have this cult of personality with these politicians, they would defend it. Oh, well, it's good because we have to invest in our military, but to hell with all the people that live here and can't afford anything. Yeah, nothing we can do for them. We can't take one. Let's see, it was 800 billion or over 800 billion. We couldn't take an eighth of that and invest in a jobs program or an actual wage increase or creating more housing or lowering the cost of housing or uh, attempting a single payer healthcare. I mean, they don't even try, man. It is just a mirage scam joke over here. And unfortunately, you don't. I just don't know what else to do. We're gonna just have to keep hearing about, when you propose some new public program, like with Build Back Better, which was whatever Biden's proposal, or if it's Medicare for all, you're gonna see people go, how are you gonna pay for it? 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 Or free college? How are you gonna pay for it? But then when it's the almost 900 billion for the military budget, shh, be very very quiet. It is the literal twilight zone, and people really drive me crazy because there's so much that the U.S. government could do to help its people in the ways I've described here that they choose not to do. And like I said, the politicians, they are insulated from any consequence. They don't have to worry about any of their voters confronting them over this. They don't have to worry about bad press coverage where the news where the journalists will like actually hold their feet to the fire and say, wait, we can't fund any of these programs for our people, but you can fund all this stuff overseas. You won't see that either because our journalists are a joke, our media is a joke, our politicians are a joke. It's a rancid system of people that are bought out and purposefully going out of their way to make sure that the public doesn't know about this, that they remain uninformed, and that they remain convinced that whether you vote Democrat or Republican, you're actually making a damn difference. When, as I said earlier, with the amazing, wonderful U.S. Uniparty, you're going to have hundreds of billions of dollars going to the military, no matter if the person has a D or an R by their name. And it's such a joke. Just all this stuff about this party is socialist and that, like, man, look at how much money they send over here, and like both sides are like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I guarantee you, if they said let's invest this amount, 800 billion, 890 billion, whatever, into fixing our roads, you would see 60 votes ready to vote that down. All the Republicans and like 10 Democrats just for good measure. But when you talk about sending some stuff over to one of these foreign countries or invading here or hey, they're all waving the flag, ready to team up and get together and find another way to get out of actually doing something for their own, for the people that they claim to represent.